Hello, everyone. Why is it so difficult for self published authors to succeed with literary fiction? Now, before I get to that, I will just say that my book, The Ecstasy and the Ignominy, is available for purchase if you're interested, and it is a literary fiction book. Um, anyway, I think there are a number of reasons why self published authors, in particular, who write literary fiction struggle to succeed. Um, well, that's for one reason is that general audiences, popular audiences, usually aren't interested in complex literature that challenges them intellectually, or at the very least, they're not ready for it. For example, when I write the passage in from chapter 19 of my book, The Ecstasy and the Ignominy, that goes, Catherine's velvet eyes were flooded with silken tears, the centers of which captured the reflections of the languorous candlelight. Within those saturnine waters I saw a turbulent sea, one which longed for amiable rains. Suddenly it became quite clear that I was her rain, without which even the most entrancing of seas could not endure. Now, for a lot of people, that kind of passage is too challenging. I mean, it's not that challenging to me and for many readers of literary fiction, but for many people, they don't want to actually grapple um, with that kind of language. They prefer easier kind of reads, and that's often true for general audiences. And so that's one reason is that self-published authors struggle to find readership among general audiences. But here's the thing that some people might not know. A lot of people know that, but here's the thing they might not know, and that is they can also struggle um, to find readership among people who actually enjoy literary fiction, because there's often a criticism that people who that literary fiction is inherently pretentious. I don't think it is. But one thing I will agree on is that people in literary fiction circles can behave in a very pretentious way when it comes to things like gatekeeping, of saying, well, if your book wasn't published by the right publisher, if the right critic didn't recommend it, then I'm not even going to give your book a chance. And so it's one of those things where when writers self-publish literary fiction, even the readers who could enjoy it if they gave it a chance will not give it a chance. And so I think that is one of the major factors, is because to me, snobbery and pretentiousness, um, those things aren't about assessing a work of art and judging it fairly and comparing it to other works of art, or saying that some literature is higher than other kinds. It's when you make a judgment about a work of art without even giving it a chance. Um, it's when you essentially decide, well, I'm going to judge this as being inferior, or I'm going to go in with a skeptical eye simply because it wasn't published by the right person or wasn't recommended by the right critic. And to me, that is the definition of pretentiousness and snobbery. And to me, I think that is one of the major problems why authors of literary fiction struggle to get attention, because on one hand general audiences aren't interested, but then on the other hand many people who might enjoy it if they read it um, will not actually give it that chance. And another reason I think, though, is the fact that a lot of people who like literary fiction are kind of stuck in this old model of publishing where they still think it's 1980 or 90 when it comes to how you consume books. That a lot of fans of literary fiction have not crossed that threshold into looking for things that are self-published. And this also applies to readers of classical literature as well. That you have this this phenomenon where people will read classic literature because it's been tested, um, that it's lasted hundreds of years, but they won't take risks on new forms of literature, um, because that would mean would mean reading something that has not been properly vetted, and they do not want to do that. Many people, and so that is a major problem. Is that, and I especially and I know that's a problem because For example, I cannot find I cannot find online anyone who writes literary fiction like the kind that I write. Like I write, this is a book. This is a book that is inspired by The Tale of Two Cities, Anna Karenina, classic literature. Um, I cannot, and it's very Shakespearean and Dickensian and Melvillian in tone. But I don't really know of anyone online, especially on social media, who writes the kind of fiction that I write, who has been successful in that way. Maybe they exist, but I've never heard of them. Especially younger male authors, I do not know of any. Um, but I do know of many content creators, for example, who are succeeding talking about literature, about classic literature, about literary fiction, all of that. But they're talking about books that have already been curated, already have been established. Um, they're not taking a chance by talking about them. And to me, I do think it is kind of hypocritical when you have people who love the idea of literary fiction or they love the idea of classics, um, but they're not actually interested in creating new literary fiction or new classics, because that would require a level of intellectual vulnerability and risk that they are not willing to take. And so there's a lot of hypocrisy here where I like talking about classic literature, I like talking about literary fiction, but I also want to create. I don't just want to curate, I want to create new fiction. And so I can keep those traditions alive. And that's something that a lot of people just are not prepared or willing to do. And like for example, you have my book Silent Reckoning, which was inspired by The Great Gatsby. It looks like The Great Gatsby in many ways, but it is a completely new story and book that deals with mature themes that couldn't have been touched upon 100 years ago. And that's something that I think one of the benefits of creating new literary fiction is that you're actually dealing with themes that in the past, especially classics, couldn't have touched on. But now you can do that in a new way, in a new and authentic way. Um, you can deal with gritty themes, with sexual themes, with cursing, things that classic literature was forbidden to do. But you can also weave poetry, language, meaning, and philosophy into that. And so I don't think that we need to appreciate classic literature, of course, but we shouldn't be stuck and say, well, we can't write anything new. Um, we have to innovate as a culture. Um, Otherwise, we will remain stagnant. So again, I think that is one of the reasons why it is so difficult to succeed with for self-published authors to succeed with literary fiction. Because on one hand, you have general audiences who aren't interested, but then you also can kind of feel like you have something to prove with people who may be interested in it but dismiss it because your book does not have a certain kind of reputation to go along with it. So I hope you enjoyed my video for today. Again, my books are linked in the description section in case you're interested. And until next time, goodbye.